I am Megan and welcome to my kitchen. In today's What's for Dinner video, I'll be sharing with you what meals we had this past week. Our dinners were easy to make, budget friendly, and delicious. So if you're looking for some weeknight meal ideas for your family, just keep watching. First up, I had some Copycat Cafe Rio sweet pork in my freezer that I needed to use up. I made this several weeks back. I'll link that video down in the description box below. To get started, I'm going to make the Mexican rice. I got this recipe from a lady at church named Amber. I believe her husband is from Mexico, and she shared her recipe for Mexican rice with me. I think I've shared this once before on my channel. It's super easy and delicious, so I'll have the recipe in the description box below. In this saucepan, I've got it over about medium heat. I'm going to add in some oil. Next, I'm going to add in some rice. Amber said she usually uses basmati. I didn't have any basmati on hand, but I did have jasmine, so I'm going to add that. And you just want to stir the rice every so often, and you're going to toast it. So once the rice starts to get a little bit brown, then we're going to add in the rest of our ingredients. Usually I use chicken broth or water and some chicken bouillon, but my sister gave me this tomato chicken bouillon, and I've been meaning to use it and just hadn't got around to it. So I'm going to add that and then some tomato sauce. I'm then going to add in some frozen peas and carrots, and I just eyeball the frozen peas and carrots. I mean, you can add as many or as few is what you like. I'm going to add in some salt and then give this a stir. I'm going to bring this to a boil. Once it's at a boil, I'm going to reduce it to a simmer, cover it with a lid, and cook it until the water is evaporated, usually about 18 minutes or so. Once the water's evaporated, I turn the heat off and don't take off the lid. Let it sit for about 5 minutes and then fluff it with a fork, and this is what it'll look like. Now I'm going to start the refried beans. I think the recipe for this is called like restaurant style refried beans or something like that. I'll have it linked down below. It's super easy and these are delicious. To the saucepan, I'm going to add in a can of refried beans. Just use your favorite brand. Next, we're going to add in some sour cream, and I have made this in the past where I've made it with Greek yogurt. Turns out just fine. Next, we're going to add in a few dashes of hot sauce. Just do this to taste. And I've mentioned before, I'm usually not a hot sauce fan because of the vinegar. But in this, I really can't, decipher the vinegar between the refried beans and the sour cream. Now, the recipe doesn't call for taco seasoning, but I like to add it in and then just a little bit of salt. And we're just going to keep this like on medium low, stir every so often until they're warmed through. And here's that leftover sweet pork I mentioned. I just pulled it from my freezer, allowed it to thaw in the fridge, and I'm going to heat that up. Next is the queso. I first saw this on Missy's channel, Love Missy XO. I'll link it down in the description box below. This is so easy. You can keep all of the ingredients pretty much on hand in your fridge and pantry, so you can whip up queso whenever you want. And if you've never made your own queso, I highly recommend you give it a try. It is so delicious and super easy. So in this little saucepan, I am going to add in some milk. I believe the recipe Missy uses calls for either heavy cream or half and half. I just use what I've got on hand. I've even made this with almond milk before and it turned out just fine. So on about medium heat, we're going to warm up, whatever milk you're using. Once it's warm, you're just going to take some sliced white American cheese and add that. I like to break it up in little pieces. And then I am going to add in some diced green chilies that I have drained. I like to season this to taste with a little bit of salt and cumin, and then give this a whisk and just over about medium-low heat, cook it until the cheese is melted, and that's it. Homemade queso, so yummy. All right, so I'm ready to assemble the burritos. You can use whatever tortillas you prefer. I didn't have any burrito-sized tortillas on hand, but I had the soft taco size. That's just what I'm going to use. I did pop these in the microwave for about 20 seconds to warm up. I'm going to lay down a layer of the refried beans, then the rice, then the pork, and next comes the cheese. Now, usually it's Monterey Jack cheese in this. Oh, and I say usually, so let me back up. There was a restaurant here in our town that had, I think they called it like the El Bandito burrito, and they closed down a couple years ago, but I loved this burrito, and so I've tried to recreate it at home. So when I say usually, I mean that restaurant put Monterey Jack cheese inside. I didn't have any, but I did have some shredded up mozzarella today, so that's what I'm going to use. But you can use whatever cheese you prefer. So once I've added the cheese, I'm going to roll that up and then place it into a greased baking dish. Once I've got my burritos made, I'm going to top it with some salsa verde, and again, just recreating what the restaurant had, but this is so delicious. Once I've added that salsa verde, I am going to drizzle on some of the queso. Now, really, you could serve this right away, but I like to pop this in the oven and, kind of let everything on the inside of the burrito heat up. I just baked this at 375 degrees for about 15 minutes or so, and this is what the burritos look like when they were done. Here are the plates. We've got the burrito. I did garnish that with a little bit of chopped cilantro. We've got the rice, refried beans, and I did take a little of the leftover queso and drizzle it over our refried beans. And then we've got some mashed up avocado and chopped tomatoes, and this was so incredibly delicious. I recommend you all give this a try. And instead of the sweet pork, you could use carnitas, steak, chicken, ground beef, even shrimp, or just all veggies would be really yummy in this as well. So I recommend you all give this a try. Delicious. Next, I tried a new recipe for a Mediterranean cod sheet pan dinner. As always, the recipe will be linked down in the description box below. I've got my oven preheating to 450 degrees. I took a sheet pan and sprayed it with a little bit of cooking spray. I'm going to add on some cherry or grape tomatoes. Next, the zucchini. Just took a couple zucchini that I washed, cut it in half, and then quartered them. And then the recipe doesn't call for this, but I had a little bit of green bell pepper on hand I needed to use up, so I just thinly sliced that, as well as some purple or red onion, whatever you want to call it. Looks purple to me. I'm going to add that, and just make sure you cut your vegetables so that they all end up tender at the same time. So like the zucchini, you want to cut a little bit bigger than the onions and bell peppers, because the onions and bell peppers will take a little bit longer to cook. I'm going to drizzle the veggies with some olive oil, and then we're going to add some seasonings. Really, you could use whatever seasonings you like. I'm going to do some salt, pepper, minced garlic. Next, I'm adding the oregano and parsley, and using my clean hands, I'm going to give that a really good toss. You could also use tongs if you prefer. Quick disclaimer, I showed the olive oil. It's from the Nashville Olive Oil Company. Mentioned them many times before on my channel. Not sponsored in any way, shape, form, or fashion. They have no clue who I am. I just like their products. They've got a few locations in the Nashville area, but you can use whatever oil you prefer. So I'm going to spread out the vegetables with my hands and leave some room in the middle for the fish. Now, the recipe calls for Kalamata olives. I don't like olives, but my husband loves them. I get these little packets at the Dollar Tree, so I'm going to add some olives to some of the vegetables on one side. And then I've got some lemon that I just cut into thick slices. I'm going to arrange those just randomly. There's no rhyme or reason. I've added the cod. I already seasoned the first side. I'll show you what I did here on the second side. So I'm drizzling some of that oil on the fish, spreading it out with my hand, and then to season up the cod, the recipe suggested using salt, pepper, and garlic. I wanted to try using this Kinder's blend, so I'm going to add that and then add some oregano. Next, I'm going to take some capers and just kind of drizzle those, or sprinkle them rather, over the vegetables and the fish. And then that's pretty much it. This is going to go into the preheated oven for about 15 minutes until the veggies are tender and the cod is nice and flaky. And you can broil this for a couple minutes or so to get, the cod and the veggies a little bit brown. Now, to go along with this, I had this Greek feta dressing on hand in my fridge that I wanted to use up, and I bought this at Publix. This was delicious. We really enjoyed this the first time we had it, and so I really wanted to use it up if I could. So I'm just going to throw together a quick little side salad using that dressing, some romaine lettuce, tomatoes, cucumber. I had some leftover feta, and then the same Kalamata olives. Now, here's a picture of my plate. Gary ate later after he got home from the gym. I've got that salad, the vegetables, a piece of the cod, and then some of the boar's head tzatziki. That boar's head tzatziki is so good. This dinner was delicious. I loved the flavor of the sheet pan dinner, and that salad dressing is so yummy. I will be honest though with the cod. So I bought this cod from Aldi, and I've bought many different proteins from them. Never had any problems. I don't know what it was about this particular cod, but it wasn't very good quality at all. I don't know how or why, but it was like really hard, and I didn't overcook it. It's just the texture was just really, really off. I don't know how to explain it, but I will definitely make this again, just use different cod. But this was so delicious. Such a quick dinner too. It was like very little prep. Took 15 minutes to cook. So you can do the prep while the oven's preheating, and so less than 30 minutes you've got dinner, and it's a healthy, delicious dinner. For dinner the next night, we did You're on Your Own, or Yo-Yo night. Everybody kind of fends for themselves. Here's a picture of what I put together for my dinner. So I had meal prepped some egg omelet cups earlier in the week, so I just decided to warm those up in the microwave. I've shared how I make these before on my channel. I'll link that video down below. And then I did a toasted peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I mentioned this before on my channel, but this is one of my favorite breakfasts. I've eaten this since I was a kid. All I do is take a couple pieces of bread, put it in the toaster. Once it's toasted to my liking, on one piece of bread, I add a little bit of regular peanut butter and then some crunchy peanut butter. On the other side, I do some jelly. I did strawberry tonight and then put it together for my peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And then Gary had frosted mini wheats. I did not get a picture of his, but I know you probably know what frosted mini wheats look like, but that was our dinner this night. For the next dinner, I'm going to do a little disclaimer, so if you don't want to hear the disclaimer, just fast forward. I saw a video pin on Pinterest for a recipe for a honey garlic lemon pepper chicken thigh. And it just looked really, really yummy, so I pinned it, and I've been meaning to get around to making it. When I went to make it for this video, well, really for dinner this week, I realized that, I guess it was like a viral TikTok, and the gentleman in the video kind of like walks through the recipe, but he doesn't give amounts. And if you want the amounts, you had to pay for the recipe. And I was going to do that, but number one, I couldn't actually find where you paid for the recipe. But number two, I wasn't really comfortable sharing that on my channel. One, I want to be respectful of other creators. And so, you know, with it being his recipe, I wasn't comfortable sharing the exact recipe, specifically the amounts. And then, you know, also with it being behind a paywall, I just felt bad about telling, you know, my viewers, hey, if you want to make this, you got to go pay for it, if that makes any sense at all. But I'll have the video pin linked down in the description box below if you want to go check that out and get his recipe. What I did though was I kind of took his video and then looked at other recipes online for similar like honey garlic chicken thighs and kind of came up with my own creation. So let me show you how I put this together. This was really yummy. So in the recipe video, the gentleman started out by seasoning the chicken and marinating it with the seasonings and some oil. So I am using smoked paprika, garlic powder, onion powder, salt and pepper. Now, like I said, he didn't give measurements, so I just eyeballed everything. Like Tamara says, season with your heart, season to taste. And then he used lemon pepper, but I have this Badia orange pepper on hand. I saw this on Kat's channel. I'll have it linked down below. And I've been looking for ways to use it, so I thought orange and honey go really well together, so I bet this would be delicious. And orange and chicken go well together. So I decided to use the orange pepper, but you could use lemon pepper if you prefer. I combined those seasonings with the oil, rubbed it all over the chicken, including under the skin. I took a cookie sheet, lined it with some aluminum foil, and you'll definitely want to line it with foil. And then I added a wire rack, added the chicken, and I popped this into my fridge and let it marinate for a couple hours. If you don't have time to let it marinate, no worries. You can just go ahead and start cooking it. All right, I've got the oven preheating to 375 degrees for the chicken. I'm going to start one of the sides. I tried a new recipe for a Parmesan zucchini and corn. I will link the recipe in the description box below. I very loosely followed it though. So in this skillet, I've got it on about medium-high, medium heat. I lie, it wasn't on medium-high heat. It was on medium heat. I'm going to add in some oil and then some minced garlic and cook that for about 30 seconds until you can start to smell the garlic. Next, I'm going to add in a couple zucchini. I just diced that up after I washed it, of course. Next, I'm going to add in the corn. You could use fresh corn, of course. You could use frozen corn. I'm just using some canned corn that I drained really well. Now for the seasonings, I've got some dried basil, oregano, thyme, salt, and pepper. I'm going to give this a stir and then cook this on medium heat for about 10 to 15 minutes or so until the zucchini is tender. Once it's tender, you are going to give this a taste and adjust the seasonings to your taste. Now, the recipe said to use the Parmesan cheese as a garnish, but I decided to go ahead and add it in at this point. I turned the heat off, gave it one final stir, and then I'm just going to set that to the side. In this saucepan, I'm going to make the honey garlic glaze for the chicken thighs. So like I said, I found a similar recipe to the guy's video. I'll have it linked down below. I've got this over about medium heat. I'm going to add in a few tablespoons of butter. Once the butter's melted, I'm going to add in some minced garlic and then give that a stir and cook this for about 30 seconds until that garlic becomes fragrant. Now, the recipe I was taking inspiration from didn't show this next part, but the guy in the video that I saw had added some chicken broth. So I added water and a little bit of chicken bouillon. I don't know that I would add that next time. It kind of thinned the sauce out. So, I mean, you could add it or skip adding it. I think I would skip adding it and just add it if you feel like it's a little too tight. So once I've done that, I'm going to add in my honey and then add in some soy sauce to taste. The guy in the video added some lemon juice, but with me using the orange pepper, I decided to add in some orange juice and then a little more of that orange pepper seasoning. I'm going to give that a good whisk, and then I just simmered this until it was thick and coated the back of a spoon. So here is the chicken that I cooked in the oven. I cooked it at 375 for about 20 minutes on one side, flipped it over, cooked it for another 20 minutes or so until the chicken was at least 165 degrees. Once it was there, I'm going to brush it on both sides with that yummy honey garlic sauce and then place it back into the oven for just about 5 minutes to allow that sauce to set and get really nice and sticky. To go along with this, I don't know why, but I really wanted some of that like 4-cheese rice-a-roni. I just thought it sounded delicious with this. I didn't have any on hand. I did have this chicken flavored rice mix. This is the Aldi version. And so I cooked this according to package instructions, and then I figured I'd just add some cheese and have my own cheesy rice. So here's what the rice looked like when it was done. I added in some shredded cheese, and then it was a little thick for my particular liking, so I added in a little bit of milk and just covered it back with a lid and let it sit with the heat off while that cheese melted and the milk just warmed through, and it was a quick and easy cheesy rice. All right, so here are what the chicken thighs looked like when they were done. And I had some of that leftover honey garlic sauce, so I gave them another little brush when they came out of the oven, which was totally fine to do because remember when we put it on the chicken was already cooked. Here's that cheesy rice, and then here is the zucchini and corn. And then here's a picture of my plate. Gary was at the gym this night, so he ate later when he came home, and everything was so good. That rice was yummy, the corn and the zucchini was yummy, and the chicken thighs had so much flavor. They were delicious. For dinner the next night, I really didn't feel like cooking, so I dug around in my pantry and freezer and fridge to see what I could come up with, and here's what I did. So I had just a couple hamburger buns that needed to be used up. I'd bought this Aldi red bag chicken the other day that was in my freezer, and so here are a picture of the plate. So for the chicken, I just popped them in the air fryer, and for my chicken sandwich, I kept it pretty simple, just did the cooked chicken with some of the Chick-fil-A Polynesian sauce. For my husband's sandwich, I added a slice of the Sargento cheddar cheese to his chicken and then added lettuce, tomato. I used some pre-cooked Hormel bacon, and then I believe I did chipotle mayonnaise on his sandwich. And then I'd made some Ruby Tuesday pasta salad for meal prep this week. I mentioned before, I love making pasta salads during the week just to keep on hand for quick lunches or like tonight for a quick side. I've shared this before on my channel. I have the video linked down below. It is so yummy, and this was an easy dinner to put together and delicious. I have been craving a really yummy, creamy pasta dish. So on this night, I decided to make a spring tortellini pasta. I've made this many times over the years. It's delicious. I may have shared it before on my channel. I can't remember. If I have, I'll try to find the video and link it down below, but I'll have the recipe down below either way. Here's what I'm going to use to make it. And I didn't have any tortellini on hand, so I just used some fettuccine pasta. Here's everything else that I'm going to use. I've got some peas, Parmesan cheese. Now, normally I just use either like the grated in the can or grated from the deli, but I decided to grate my own today. I've got some bacon. I've also made this using prosciutto, and it's really good, but of course bacon is more budget friendly. I have some fresh asparagus, some onion I'm going to dice up, minced garlic, and heavy cream. So what I did was I cooked up the bacon and drained it, removed it to a paper towel lined plate, and then I am going to saute the onions and asparagus. I just washed the asparagus and chopped it up. I am using that bacon grease to cook this in, and then I'm just going to cook that for a few minutes until it's tender. Now, in this skillet here, I've made my homemade Alfredo sauce. I've shared this many times before on my channel. I'll link it down below. Super easy. If you've never made your own homemade Alfredo sauce, I highly recommend it. It's delicious and it's easy. Basically, all you do is add some butter to a pan. Once it's melted, add in some garlic. Let the garlic cook for about 30 seconds. Add in heavy whipping cream. You do need to use heavy whipping cream. If you try to use any other type of milk, it just won't thicken up for you. Simmer the cream for about 3 to 5 minutes until it starts to get thick. Add in your grated Parmesan cheese, season to taste with salt and pepper. There you go, homemade Alfredo. I added the peas, the chopped cooked bacon, and some cooked fettuccine pasta to that Alfredo sauce, gave it a toss, and then that's it. It was done. Now, to go along with this, I had one single ciabatta roll that I really needed to do something with, so I decided to do just some quick garlic bread. I took that ciabatta roll, split it in half. I'm going to add some butter, a little bit of garlic powder, some parsley flakes, and some of that grated Parmesan cheese. And I just baked this in the oven. I think I baked it at like 375 degrees for maybe 5 to 6 minutes until the bread was toasted. Here's a picture of the plate. I did some of the pasta and a piece of the garlic bread, and this totally fulfilled my craving for a really creamy, yummy pasta. So last but not least, for dinner, we have leftovers, and we had leftovers from our lunch that day. So for lunch that day, I'd made several just little snacky foods for us to eat over the weekend. I believe I've shared everything that I made on my channel before except one thing. So first up, I did some Little Smokies. I took half the package of Little Smokies and did some barbecue Smokies, just barbecue sauce, a little bit of brown sugar, warmed it up on top of the stove for about 10 minutes. The other half I wrapped in some crescent rolls, placed it in the oven at I think 350 degrees for about 10 to 12 minutes until it was golden brown. Next, I tried a new recipe for baked brie. I'll have the recipe linked down below. It was super easy. Just took a wheel of brie, added it to a baking dish, added some fig jam on top, some chopped walnuts, popped it in a 350-degree oven for about 10 to 12 minutes, and this was so yummy. I served it with some brioche toast that I had in my pantry. I got this at Trader Joe's, needed to use them up, and served it with some club crackers. I also set out some fresh fruit. I've got some apple slices that we ate with the baked brie, some strawberries, grapes, assorted melons. I didn't have a dip put together. I mean, I could have put one together, but last minute I decided to try to figure something out for a dip. I just did some strawberry yogurt, and that was it. It was delicious dipped in it. I made my homemade spinach dip. I've shared this before. I'll link the video down below. Got some Hawaiian rolls that I served with it. Made the vegetable crescent roll pizza. Mentioned this so many times before. We love this. It is so yummy. And that was our lunch this day, and we had leftovers, like I said, for dinner this night, and just snacked on it over the weekend. All right, that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you got some meal ideas from this. If you liked the video, hit the thumbs up button below and subscribe to my channel if you're not already, and I hope you have a great week. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.